What happens when the one tired of being disappointed meets the one who just became the disappointment?
The snow falls in slow motion under the yellow glow of the street lamp. Raina sits on the bench with her hands tucked under her thighs, trying to keep her fingers from going completely numb. Her red dress peeks out beneath her wool coat, the one she bought specifically for tonight, the one that was supposed to make her feel confident and beautiful and chosen. Instead, she feels like an idiot. Beside her, a man in an expensive charcoal coat sits with his face buried in his hands. His shoulders shake, not dramatically, just enough that she can tell he's trying to hold it together and failing. She doesn't know him, didn't even notice when he sat down. But now, in the silence between them, she hears it. A sharp, involuntary inhale. The kind of breath you take when crying stops being something you do and becomes something that happens to you. Raina shifts slightly, uncomfortable. She wonders if she should say something, offer a tissue, pretend she doesn't notice. And then he lifts his head just enough for her to see his face. She freezes, because she knows that face, not personally, but the way you know faces that show up on your phone, on magazine covers at the grocery store checkout, on news segments playing in the background while you're getting ready for work. Torren Vale, the billionaire, the guy who built MindBridge, the app half the country uses to manage their mental health. The man Forbes called the empathy entrepreneur, the face of accessible wellness, the hero of 1,000 think pieces. And he's sitting beside her on a freezing bench in the middle of nowhere, crying like his world just collapsed. Raina blinks. Her brain scrambles to catch up. This can't be real. But it is. She can see the edge of his watch, sleek, minimal, probably worth more than her car. She can see the tailored seams of his coat, the kind of thing that doesn't wrinkle no matter how long you sit in the cold. She thought the worst part of her night was being stood up. She was wrong. Have you ever sat alone somewhere, pretending you weren't waiting on someone who clearly wasn't coming? Maybe you checked your phone one too many times. Maybe you smiled at the server and said, "They're just running late," even though you knew better. Maybe you've spent years waiting for the relationship, the job, the moment that would finally prove you were worth showing up for. If you have, you already know what Raina's feeling right now. She's tired. Not just tonight tired, soul tired. The kind of tired that comes from always being the backup plan, the second choice, the person people promise to meet and then forget. And beside her sits a man who has everything she thought mattered: money, success, influence, a name people recognize, and he's completely falling apart. Here's the thing about tonight. It's not just about a missed date. Raina has a pattern. She knows it. She hates it. But she keeps falling into it anyway. She meets someone. She likes them. She starts building a future in her head before the second date even happens. She ignores the red flags because maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time she'll finally be enough. And then they don't show up, or they show up, but only halfway, only when it's convenient, only until something better comes along. Torren Vale has a pattern too. He builds things, big things, important things, things that help people, or at least that's what he tells himself. MindBridge was supposed to be his legacy. A mental health app that made therapy affordable, accessible, life-changing. Millions of users. Billions in funding. A cover story in Time magazine with the headline, "The Man Who Wants to Heal America." But lately, the headlines have changed. MindBridge under fire for data privacy violations. Parents say app exposed teens to harmful content. Vale's empire, innovation or exploitation. He didn't mean for it to go this way. He didn't set out to hurt anyone. But somewhere between the Series A funding and the IPO, between the board meetings and the growth metrics, he stopped asking the hard questions. And now people are paying the price. So here they are. A woman who keeps waiting for someone to choose her. A man who just realized the thing he built to help people might be quietly destroying them. What happens when these two collide? What happens when the person who's tired of being disappointed meets the person who just realized he's become the disappointment? By the end of this night, they will both have to make a choice. Not the kind of choice that shows up in romantic comedies, Not the kind that gets resolved with a grand gesture and a kiss in the rain. The real kind. The kind where you decide what kind of love and what kind of life you're actually willing to choose. Not the version that looks good on paper. Not the version that impresses other people. The version that costs you something. The version that asks you to stop performing and start being honest. Stay with me until the end to see how a no-show date and a crying billionaire forced Raina to choose between being rescued and finally rescuing herself. But to understand how they ended up here, on this bench in the snow, we need to go back 1 hour, to a table for two that never became two. You're listening to Mr. Duskmore's Golden Twilight Stories, where we share the kind of tales that don't just pass the time, they sharpen the heart. If you've ever felt stood up by life, hit that subscribe button and share this story with someone who might need it. And in the comments, tell me, what would you do if your date didn't show up and a stranger started crying beside you? Would you stay? Would you walk away? Would you ask what's wrong? Or would you protect your own peace? Let me know. I read every comment. Now, let's rewind. Raina learned about waiting early. She waited for her father to come home from business trips that stretched longer each time, until one day he just stopped coming back altogether. She waited for her mother to finish double shifts at the hospital, sitting in the break room doing homework under fluorescent lights that buzzed too loud. Her mother used to say, "Punctuality is respect, baby. When you show up on time, you're saying you matter to me." So Raina became the girl who always showed up. She showed up for group projects and did most of the work. She showed up for friends going through breakups, holding their hands through 2 a.m. phone calls. She showed up early to every job, every appointment, every first date, carrying the belief that if she just proved herself reliable enough, valuable enough, someone would finally decide she was worth staying for. Now, at 31, she works at the Riverside Community Arts Center, a place with cracked linoleum floors, radiators that clang like angry ghosts, and donated art supplies that have seen better days. But when the kids walk in after school, their faces light up. They don't have to be perfect here. They don't have to perform. They can just be real. Raina built that space because she never had one herself. Raina's dating history reads like a manual on emotional labor. There was the guy who loved that she got him, but hated when she needed anything back. There was another who said she was too intense after she cried during a movie about a kid losing his dog. There was the one who ghosted her the week she asked if they were exclusive. Each time, she told herself the same thing. Maybe I was too much. Maybe I should have been cooler, funnier, less emotional, more mysterious. Her therapist, Dr. Lorna, keeps gently pushing back. "Raina," she said during their last session, "you keep auditioning for a role in someone else's life. When do you get to be the leading character in your own?" Raina laughed it off. But the question stuck, because the truth is, she doesn't know how to stop performing. She doesn't know how to show up as herself. Messy, complicated, too passionate about community theater and kids' finger paintings, and trust that it's enough. So she keeps trying, keeps swiping, keeps hoping the next guy will be different, keeps getting disappointed. The red dress hangs on the back of her bathroom door. Raina bought it 3 weeks ago. During a moment of optimism, she now half regrets. It's bold, confident, the kind of dress that says, "I know what I'm worth." She pulls it on, zips it up, and stares at herself in the mirror. "Okay," she whispers. "Tonight, you're going to be normal. No oversharing. No talking about the community center for 20 minutes. Just be light, be fun." She grabs her phone and scrolls back through her conversations with Nerin. He seemed different, thoughtful. He recommended books she'd actually want to read. The Overstory, Station 11, Things with Depth. He asked questions that weren't just small talk. He didn't send unsolicited photos or make jokes that landed somewhere between flirty and disrespectful. When he suggested dinner at Marlowe and Fig, a cozy bistro she'd been wanting to try, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not the reckless kind. The cautious kind. The kind where you think, maybe this time I won't have to pretend. She takes one last look in the mirror, grabs her coat, and heads out into the February cold. Marlowe and Fig smells like rosemary and brown butter. The lighting is soft and golden. Couples lean across small tables, hands almost touching over wine glasses. A man laughs too loud near the bar. Someone's phone buzzes and gets silenced immediately. Raina sits at a table near the window, her coat draped over the chair beside her. 7 p.m, right on time. She orders sparkling water with lime, trying not to look like she's waiting. She scrolls through her phone, checks the weather, refreshes her messages. Nothing. 7:10 p.m. She texts, "Hey, I'm here." Table near the front window. The typing bubble appears. Her heart lifts. Then it disappears. 7:20 p.m. The waiter approaches with a sympathetic smile. "Can I get you started with anything while you wait? Just maybe a glass of wine?" she says, hating how her voice sounds small. He nods. Doesn't ask if she's sure her date is coming. She's grateful for that. 7:35 p.m. The wine sits untouched. She watches a couple at the next table feed each other bites of pasta, laughing. Her chest tightens. Dr. Lorna's voice plays in her head. "His absence doesn't define your value." But it feels like it does, because if she were funnier, prettier, more interesting, wouldn't he have shown up? She knows that's not how it works. She knows she's falling into old patterns, the ones where she takes responsibility for other people's choices. But knowing doesn't make it hurt less. 7:45 p.m. She catches the host glancing at her again. Pity in his eyes. That's it. She signals the waiter, pays for the wine she didn't drink, and walks out into the cold. The air outside hits her like a slap. Cold, sharp, real. She pulls her coat tighter and blinks against the sting of wind and something else she refuses to name. Her phone buzzes. For a second, her heart jumps. It's just a notification from her rideshare app. Driver is 4 minutes away. She exhales a shaky breath that fogs in the freezing air. "Okay," she mutters to herself. "This is fine. You're fine. It's just another stupid date that didn't happen. It doesn't mean anything. Except it does. Because it's not just tonight. It's every night like tonight. Every message left on read. Every plan that fell through. Every person who made her feel like she was almost enough but not quite." She spots a bench under a street lamp across the small plaza. Snow dusts the wooden slats. She walks over and sits down, ignoring the cold seeping through her coat. "Great," she whispers. "Now I'm the opening act of a sad Christmas special." Raina checks her phone. 3 minutes now. She watches her breath cloud in the cold air, listens to the muffled sound of traffic a block over, the faint hum of the restaurant behind her, and then she hears it. A sharp inhale. Broken. Involuntary. She freezes. Someone is sitting on the other end of the bench. She didn't even notice when he sat down. She glances over, just slightly. A man. Expensive coat. Face buried in his hands. Shoulders trembling. Her first instinct is to look away, to give him privacy, to protect herself from getting involved in someone else's pain when she's barely holding her own together. But the sound comes again, raw, unguarded, the kind of crying that happens when you think no one's listening. Her heart tugs. Do I say something? Do I stay silent? She turns, just enough to really see him, and that's when she recognizes his face. Raina sits frozen for a moment, caught between the instinct to help and the desire to protect what's left of her emotional energy tonight. But the sound of his breathing, sharp, ragged, like he's fighting for composure, makes the decision for her. "Hey," she says softly. "Are you okay?" He jerks upright, startled. His hands fly to his face, wiping roughly at his eyes like he can erase the evidence. "I'm fine," he says quickly. His voice is hoarse. "Sorry. I didn't mean to." "You don't have to apologize," Raina interrupts gently. "I can move if you need space." "No." He shakes his head. "It's a public bench. You were here first." She studies him for a second. Even in the dim light, she can see the expensive cut of his coat, the kind of tailoring that doesn't happen by accident. His tie is loosened, askew. Snow clings to his dark hair like he's been walking for a while. He looks like someone who had everything together this morning and watched it all fall apart by evening. She knows that feeling. Well, she says, settling back against the bench, then I guess we're both having a night. He laughs, but it's hollow, empty. The kind of laugh that's just air leaving your lungs because you don't know what else to do. Yeah, he mutters. Something like that. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The silence sits between them, oddly comfortable despite the strangeness of the situation. Then he glances at her, really looks at her for the first time. Shouldn't you be inside somewhere warm? He asks. It's freezing out here. Raina shrugs. I was. Then I left. Bad dinner? Non-existent dinner, actually. She tries to keep her tone light. Got stood up. His expression shifts, something between surprise and genuine anger on her behalf. Then he's an idiot, he says simply. It's not a line, not performative kindness, just a flat statement of fact delivered with the kind of certainty that catches her off guard. Thanks, she says, and means it. He nods, then goes quiet again. His jaw tightens. He's staring at nothing, or maybe everything, his eyes unfocused like he's watching a scene play out that only he can see. Raina doesn't push. She just sits, waits. Sometimes that's all people need, someone willing to stay. Can I ask you something? He says finally. Sure. What if? He hesitates, searching for the words. What if the one thing you thought made you worth anything actually hurt people? Raina blinks. She wasn't expecting that. Like, on purpose? She asks carefully. No. God, no. He shakes his head. But what if you didn't ask the right questions? What if you were so focused on building something big that you didn't stop to think about what it might break? She lets the question sit for a second. I work at a community arts center, she says. We're constantly one budget, cut away from shutting down. Every grant we apply for, every donation we chase, I'm terrified we're going to mess it up. That we'll say the wrong thing, or spend the money wrong, or fail the kids who need us. He looks at her, listening. But the thing is, she continues, the fear means I care. It means I'm paying attention. The people who scare me are the ones who don't worry at all. He exhales slowly, like he's letting something go. Yeah, he whispers. Yeah, that's exactly it. I run a tech company, he says after a long pause. Or, I'm supposed to run it. Right now, it feels more like it's running me. Raina nods. She doesn't interrupt. We built this platform, mental health support, therapy resources, community forums. It was supposed to help people, and for a while, it did. Millions of users, great press, investors lining up. He laughs bitterly. Everyone told me I was changing the world. But, Raina prompts gently, but we moved too fast, launched features before they were ready, ignored concerns from the safety team because the board wanted growth metrics. And now, he trails off, his voice cracking. Now there are kids being exposed to harmful content, parents saying their teenagers got worse after using our app, not better. Data breaches, privacy violations. He presses his palms against his eyes. There's this phrase in Silicon Valley, he continues. Move fast and break things. It's supposed to be about innovation, about not letting perfection slow you down. But you broke people, Raina says quietly. He nods. Yeah, I did. The admission hangs in the cold air between them. I kept telling myself it was a trade-off, he says, that we were helping more people than we were hurting, that we'd fix the problems later, but later kept getting pushed back, and the problems kept getting bigger, and now I don't know how to fix any of it without destroying everything I built. Raina is quiet for a moment, processing. Okay, she says finally. So you messed up. That's not the same thing as being a bad person. He looks at her like he doesn't believe her. Listen, she continues. I'm not saying what happened is okay. It's not. But the fact that you're sitting on a freezing bench crying about it instead of hiding behind a PR team? That says something. It says I'm weak, he mutters. It says you have a conscience. Before he can respond, his phone buzzes. He glances at it, frowning. The screen lights up his face for a second, and Raina catches a glimpse of the caller ID, Silas, Chief of Staff. Her brain starts putting pieces together. Tech company, mental health platform, data breaches, board pressure. And then she remembers the headline she scrolled past this morning while waiting for her coffee. Mindbridge CEO faces backlash over safety failures. Her eyes widen. "Wait," she says slowly. "You're Torren Vale." He freezes, then sighs. "Yeah." She stares at him. The billionaire. The guy who was on the cover of Forbes. The face of accessible mental health care. And he's sitting beside her on a bench in the snow, looking like his whole world just collapsed. "Well," she says after a beat. "That explains the expensive coat." He laughs despite himself. A real laugh this time. Brief, but genuine. "Yeah," he says. "I guess it does." Raina crosses her arms, her tone shifting slightly. "For the record," she says, "I have concerns about platforms like yours, especially when it comes to kids." "You should," he says immediately. "I do too." Now, I always knew it intellectually, he admits. But I didn't know it. Not in the way I can't unknow. Not until I read the parent testimonials. Not until I saw the internal reports my team tried to bury. She watches him carefully. He's not using the polished language of a CEO doing damage control. He's just honest. "So what are you going to do?" she asks. "That's the question." He exhales. "The board wants me to issue a statement, tweak a few features and move on. Keep the stock price stable. Protect shareholder value. And you? I want to be able to sleep at night." Raina nods slowly. "Then you already know what you have to do." "It's not that simple." "It never is." She leans back against the bench. "But you're the one with the power here. You built it. You can rebuild it differently." He's quiet for a long moment. Then he reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a business card. He hesitates before handing it to her. "This is my direct email," he says. "Not my assistant, not PR, just me." She takes the card, eyebrows raised. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because you told me the truth. And because if you ever need funding for your community center, or if you just want to yell at me about social media, I want you to be able to reach me. I'm not interested in being bought," she says carefully. "I'm not trying to buy you." His voice is steady. "I'm trying to find people who won't lie to me. That's harder than it sounds." She studies the card. Simple, elegant, just his name and an email address. "And just so you know," he adds, standing, brushing snow off his coat, "if a guy can't even text that he's not coming, that says nothing about your worth. It just says he's a coward." He starts walking toward a black car idling at the curb. Then he stops, turns back. "Thank you," he says, "for not pretending you didn't see me." And then he's gone, swallowed by the snow and the night. Raina sits alone on the bench, her thumb pressed against the edge of the card. Her rideshare has long since given up and left, but she doesn't move, because somehow, in the span of 20 minutes, her entire night has been redefined. 3 days pass. The business card sits in Raina's coat pocket, like a small weighted secret. She touches it every time she reaches for her keys, every time she pulls out her phone, every time she buttons her coat before heading out into the cold. She hasn't emailed him. She's thought about it approximately 400 times, but she hasn't actually done it. On Monday, she pulls up her email app, types his address into the to field, stares at the blank subject line for 2 full minutes, then closes the app without writing a word. On Tuesday, she gets as far as "Hi Torren" before deleting the entire draft and shoving her phone back into her bag. On Wednesday, she sits on her couch with a glass of wine and asks herself the hard question she's been avoiding. Why do I want to reach out? Is it because he seemed genuinely kind? Because he listened to her without making her feel small? Or is it because he's rich and powerful and successful, and some broken part of her still believes that being chosen by someone like that would finally prove she's worth something? She hates that she doesn't know the answer. Thursday afternoon, Raina sits in Dr. Lorna's office, curled into the corner of the overstuffed armchair she always picks. "So," Dr. Lorna says, pen poised over her notebook, "tell me about this man you met on the bench." Raina exhales. His name is Torren. He runs a tech company, a big one. He was having a crisis and we just talked. And you're still thinking about him? Yeah. What are you thinking about specifically? Raina fidgets with the edge of her sweater. I don't know. He seemed real. Like, not performing, just honest. Dr. Lorna nods slowly. And he has a lot of power. Yeah. And you run a community arts center that's constantly struggling to stay afloat. Raina looks up. Where are you going with this? I'm asking you to notice the imbalance, Dr. Lorna says gently. He has wealth, influence, access. You have passion, purpose, and very little institutional support. That's not a judgment. It's just reality. Raina's jaw tightens. So what? I shouldn't talk to him because he has more money than me. I'm not saying that, Doctor. Lorna leans forward. I'm saying, if he were just a guy crying on a bench, no money, no company, no power, would you still want to talk to him? Raina opens her mouth, closes it. And here's the other question, Dr. Lorna continues. Can you hold on to your identity if his world enters yours, or will you start shrinking yourself to fit into his narrative? Raina doesn't answer, because she doesn't know. Friday afternoon, Raina stands in the middle of the Riverside Community Arts Center's main room, staring at a growing water stain on the ceiling. Miss Raina, a voice calls. The dragon is done. She turns. Mira, a 12-year-old with paint-streaked hands and a gap-toothed grin, holds up a massive canvas covered in swirling blues, greens, and golds. The dragon they started weeks ago has grown. It now has wings that stretch across the entire top half of the painting, scales that shimmer with layered colors, and eyes that seem almost alive. Mira, this is incredible, Raina breathes. We added the fire today, Mira says proudly. See? It's not scary fire. It's like protective fire. Raina crouches down to her level. I love that. What made you decide on protective fire? Mira shrugs. Because dragons aren't bad. They just look scary. But really, they're guarding something important. Raina's chest tightens. She glances around the room, at the cracked floor, the rattling radiator, the rejected grant email still open on her laptop. This place is barely holding together. But the kids don't see that. They see a space where they can create, where they matter. And that's worth more than anything Torren Vale's world could offer. Friday night, Raina is microwaving leftovers when her phone buzzes. An email. From Torren Vale subject. Did your student ever finish that dragon painting? She freezes, fork halfway to her mouth. She opens it. Hi, Raina. I've been wondering if your student ever finished that dragon painting you mentioned. I hope they did. I have a feeling it turned out better than they expected. I wanted to let you know. We paused the feature that was causing the most harm. Announced it at a press conference yesterday. The board was furious. The stock dropped 3%. But I slept through the night for the first time in weeks. I'm not sure if that counts as progress, but your unsolicited street corner advice keeps replaying in my head, so I figured I'd let you know. Also, for the record, I've traded bench crying for late-night pacing, which feels like a marginal improvement. Hope you're well. Torren. Raina reads it twice. Then she sits down at her tiny kitchen table, opens a reply, and starts typing. Hi, Torren. The dragon is finished. And yes, it turned out better than expected. Protective fire, according to the artist. I thought you might appreciate that. Congratulations on pausing the feature. I know that couldn't have been easy. Sleeping through the night sounds like real progress to me. As for my dating life, I'm focusing on 12-year-olds with paint on their faces. Much more reliable than apps. Take care, Raina. She hits send before she can overthink it. His reply comes 2 hours later. Raina, I'm going to be in your neighborhood next week for a meeting. If you're open to it, I'd love to see the community center. I spend too much time looking at charts and not enough time seeing actual impact. Thursday at 3 p.m.? If this feels weird, just say no. I'll understand. Raina stares at the screen. Her first instinct is to say yes. Her second instinct is to protect herself. Her third instinct is to remember Dr. Lorna's question. Can you hold on to your identity if his world enters yours? She takes a breath and starts typing. Thursday at 3 p.m. works. Fair warning, the ceiling leaks, the radiator sounds like it's haunted, and if you're late, I'm writing a scathing post about billionaires who waste people's time. See you then. She hits send. Then she sets her phone down, exhales and mutters, "Okay, this is fine. You're not a project. You're not a charity case. You're just showing him your work. That's it." She repeats it like a mantra, because she needs to believe it. Quick question for you listening. If you met someone powerful who'd hurt people, then watched them try to fix it, would you let them into your world? Or would you protect your peace and walk away? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you're still with me and feeling this story, hit the like button so more people can find it. Now, let's see what happens when Torren Vale walks through the doors of the Riverside Community Arts Centre. Thursday, 2:58 p.m. Raina watches through the window as a black SUV pulls up outside the Riverside Community Arts Centre. Torren steps out, dressed in jeans and a simple navy sweater. No tie, no suit. He looks almost normal, except for the driver who opens the trunk and helps him pull out 3 large boxes. Raina meets him at the door. "You're early," she says. "You threatened me with a scathing post," he replies, smiling slightly. "I wasn't taking chances." He gestures to the boxes. "I brought supplies. Acrylics, canvases, brushes. Consider them bribes, not props." Raina raises an eyebrow. "Bribes for what?" "For you not to regret letting me in here." She laughs despite herself and holds the door open. "Come on. The kids are finishing up their session." He steps inside and the warmth of the center hits immediately. Paint-stained tables, crayon drawings taped to the walls, the faint smell of tempera and something baking in the small kitchen at the back. A radiator clangs loudly in the corner. Torren doesn't flinch. He just looks around, taking it all in. "It's perfect," he says quietly. Raina isn't sure if he means it or if he's just being polite, but something in his voice makes her think he does. "Miss Raina." "Who's that?" Mira stands in the doorway, paintbrush in hand, eyeing Torren with open curiosity. "This is Torren," Raina says. "He wanted to see what we've been working on." Mira grins. "You came to see the dragon?" "If that's okay," Torren says, crouching down to her level. "It's more than okay. Come on." She grabs his hand and drags him toward the far wall, where the dragon mural stretches across nearly 10 feet of space. It's chaotic, collaborative, layers upon layers of color, blues bleeding into greens, golds shimmering where the light hits, scales that look almost 3-dimensional. Torren stops in front of it, genuinely stunned. "It looks alive," he says. Mira beams. "That's because we all worked on it. Everybody added something. It's protective fire." Another kid, Kiva, adds from across the room. "Not the scary kind." Torren nods slowly, studying the details. "Art should make people feel things." "This does." Kiva walks over, arms crossed. "Did you want it to be dangerous? Because we talked about making it scarier, but Miss Raina said it could be strong without being mean." Torren glances at Raina, then back at Kiva. "I think that's the best kind of strength." For the next 20 minutes, Torren sits at one of the paint-splattered tables, surrounded by kids who pepper him with questions. "Do you know how to draw?" "Not really," he admits. "Then what do you do?" "I build apps, software, things on your phone." One of the older kids, Jordan, narrows his eyes. "Like games?" "Sometimes, but mostly things to help people." "That's boring," Jordan says flatly. Torren laughs. "Yeah. Sometimes it is." Raina watches from across the room as he picks up a brush and tries, badly, to paint a tree. The kids immediately start giving him advice, giggling when his branches look more like blobs. "You're terrible at this," Mira says, delighted. "I really am," Torren agrees. Then he asks, almost casually, "How does the internet make you feel?" The kids pause. "Annoying," one says. "Like everyone's watching." Another adds quietly. "Like I'm supposed to be perfect," Kiva says. Torren's expression shifts. He listens, really listens. And Raina sees something in his face she recognizes. Guilt, but also resolve. He's not just here to observe. He's here to understand. And maybe, she thinks, to figure out how to do better. After the kids leave, Raina and Torren sit in the small office at the back of the center, a cramped space with a desk buried under grant applications, a filing cabinet that doesn't close all the way, and a coffee maker that only works half the time. Raina pours 2 mugs of coffee and hands one to him. "So," she says, "what did you think?" "I think this place is real," he says. "And that's rare." She tilts her head. "Real? How? No curated goodness, no PR spin, just kids being messy and honest and creative." He pauses. "It's the opposite of everything I've built." Raina leans against the desk. "How's the board handling the feature pause?" "They're furious. Stock dipped 3%. I've had 4 separate meetings where people used the phrase fiduciary responsibility like a weapon. But you're not reversing it." "No." His voice is firm. "I'm not." She studies him. "Have you ever considered just building slower? Prioritizing mental health over infinite growth?" He laughs bitterly. "That's not how Silicon Valley works. You grow fast or you die. You scale or you're irrelevant. And look where that got you." He flinches, but doesn't argue. "I've been addicted to speed," he admits. "To the idea that bigger is always better, that impact is measured in users and revenue. But sitting here, watching those kids paint..." He stops. "They don't care how many people use my app. They care if it makes their lives better or worse." "Exactly," Raina says quietly. "I envy you," Torren says after a long silence. Raina blinks. "You envy me. Your work lines up with your values, even when it's hard, even when the money doesn't come through. You're not compromising who you are to keep the doors open." "I'm barely keeping the doors open," she points out. "But you're doing it on your terms." She's quiet for a moment. "And I envy you," she admits. "You have the power to actually change things. I'm just trying to keep 12 kids off the streets twice a week." "That's not just anything," he says. "That's everything." He asks, almost shyly, "Who did you decide to be?" Raina considers, "Someone who creates safe spaces, real spaces, where people don't have to perform." He nods. "I want to be that. I just don't know how yet." Over the next 2 weeks, they fall into a rhythm. Coffee after another center visit, debating privacy laws and algorithmic harm. Him texting her at midnight, asking genuine questions about grant writing nightmares. Her teasing him mercilessly about buzzwords like synergy and disruption. It feels normal. Almost. 3 weeks in, Torren shows up at the center unannounced. Raina is in the office, staring at an eviction notice taped to the desk. "Hey," he says from the doorway. "I need to tell you something." She looks up. "What?" "I paid off your lease." The room goes silent. "You what?" "The building owner reached out to my assistant. I had him wire the full amount. You're covered for the next 3 years. Raina stands up slowly. "You did what?" "I wanted to help." "Help?" Her voice is sharp now. "You didn't ask me. You didn't even tell me. You just decided to swoop in and fix my life with a wire transfer. I thought removing the stress would..." "Would what, Torren? Make me grateful? Make me owe you?" "No, that's not..." "You don't get to do this." Her hands are shaking. "You don't get to treat my work like a charity project, like something broken that you need to save." He looks genuinely stricken. "That's not what I meant." "But that's what you did." She takes a breath, trying to steady herself. "There's a difference between partnership and patronage, between respecting what I've built and consuming it as part of your redemption arc." He goes quiet. "I didn't see it that way," he says finally. "But you're right." She watches him, waiting. "I've spent so long throwing money at problems," he continues, voice raw. "I didn't stop to think that maybe you didn't want to be another problem I solve." "I don't. I know." "I'm sorry." He sits down, running a hand through his hair. "Help me understand. What does real support look like?" Raina exhales. "It looks like asking first. It looks like letting me make my own choices, even when they're hard." He nods. "Okay. I can do that. Can you? I'll try. The board meeting happens on a Tuesday morning in a glass-walled conference room 40 stories above the city. Torren sits at the head of the table, exhausted, while 7 faces stare back at him with varying degrees of irritation and impatience. We've lost 12% in market value since you paused that feature, one board member says, her voice clipped. 12%, Torren. Do you understand what that means for our investors? I understand, Torren says quietly. Then why are we still having this conversation? Another member snaps. Reinstate the feature. Issue a statement about improvements. Move forward. No. The room goes silent. Excuse me? I said no. Torren's voice is steady, but his hands are clenched under the table. We're not reinstating something that's actively harming people just to make the stock price go back up. One of the older members leans forward. Torren, we respect your principles, but if you can't prioritize shareholder value, we'll find someone who can. The threat hangs in the air. Torren knows what they're saying. They're considering replacing him, ousting him from the company he built. He's never felt more alone. Raina is restocking paintbrushes when her phone starts buzzing. Once, twice, 10 times in a row. She pulls it out, confused. The first text is from her friend Maya. Are you dating Torren Vale? The second is from an old co-worker girl. I just saw you on Celeb Spot. Call me. Raina's stomach drops. She opens her browser and searches her own name. The first result is a gossip site with the headline, Tech Billionaire's Mystery Woman. Who is Raina Brooks? Below it, a photo. Her and Torren leaving a coffee shop last week. She's laughing at something he said. He's looking at her like she's the only person in the world. It's a sweet moment. And it's been turned into a spectacle. The article speculates about her background, her job, whether she's changing the billionaire's heart or just another phase in his redemption tour. Her phone keeps buzzing. Parents from the center, old classmates, random numbers she doesn't recognize. She feels exposed, flattened, reduced to a character in someone else's story. By the time Torren texts, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they were following us. She's already falling apart. That night, Raina sits alone in her apartment, staring at her phone. The comments on the article are brutal. She's just using him for money. He's using her to look humble. Poor but principled girl saves rich guy. How original. She feels sick. Because part of her wonders if they're right, not about using him. She's never asked him for anything, but about being reduced to a role in his narrative. The girl who teaches him empathy. The girl who makes him a better man. The girl who exists to smooth his rough edges and make his redemption arc complete. She thinks about every relationship she's ever had. Every time she molded herself to fit someone else's needs. Every time she became the supporting character in someone else's life. She swore she wouldn't do that again. But here she is, watching her face circulate on gossip sites, her work dismissed as cute and small, her entire identity reframed around him. When Torren calls, she almost doesn't answer. But she does. Raina, I'm so sorry. I didn't sign up for this, she says, her voice shaking. I didn't sign up to be part of your PR redemption arc. Silence. Then, quietly, I know. He shows up at her apartment an hour later. She lets him in, but she doesn't sit down. She stands by the window, arms crossed, keeping distance between them. I didn't know they were following us, he says. I should have warned you. I should have been more careful. It's not just about the photo, Torren. Her voice is tight. It's about what happens when your life swallows mine whole. He flinches. I never wanted that. But it's happening anyway. She turns to face him. Do you know what people are saying? That I'm some charity case you're fixing? That I'm the simple girl who teaches you what really matters? Like I don't have my own story. Like I only exist to make you better. That's not how I see you, but that's how the world sees me now. Her voice cracks. And I've spent my whole life fighting not to disappear into other people's narratives. I can't do it again. Not even for you. Torren's face crumples. Then what do you want me to do? I don't know. She wipes her eyes. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe we're from worlds that just don't fit. He's quiet for a long time. If being with me costs you your identity, he says finally, voice raw, then I'll walk away. I don't want to be another person who makes you feel like you're not enough on your own. Torren, I mean it. He looks at her and she sees the pain in his eyes. I'd rather lose you than hurt you. They stand in her small living room, the space between them feeling vast. Maybe we should take some time, Raina says quietly. Figure out who we are without each other. Torren nods, though it clearly costs him. Okay. Neither of them moves. Finally, he turns toward the door. For what it's worth, he says without looking back, meeting you was the first real thing that's happened to me in years. I know, she whispers, and then he's gone. Raina sits on the couch, staring at the closed door, feeling the weight of the silence. She tells herself, this is the right choice, that protecting her peace matters more than any relationship. But it doesn't feel right. It just feels lonely. 3 days pass, then a week. Raina throws herself into work. Torren buries himself in board meetings and product reviews. They don't text. They don't call. They both tell themselves this is for the best, but neither of them believes it. Raina walks through the Riverside Community Arts Center on a quiet afternoon, the space empty except for the hum of the old radiator. She stands in front of the dragon mural, the one the kids finished weeks ago, the one Torren saw on his first visit. Protective fire. She thinks about Dr. Lorna's question, can you hold onto your identity if his world enters yours? And she realizes the real question isn't whether Torren's world will change her. It's whether she trusts herself enough to stay whole no matter what world she's in. She spent so long waiting for someone to choose her, to validate her, to prove she was worth showing up for. But Torren didn't fix her. He didn't complete her. He just saw her. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything. She pulls out her phone, staring at his name in her contacts. But she doesn't call. Not yet. Torren stands in his penthouse, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the glittering city below. It's beautiful. Empty. Cold. On his laptop, emails pile up. Angry users. Frustrated investors. Journalists asking for statements. He thinks about the night on the bench. The night he broke down because he finally let himself see the harm he'd caused. Raina didn't fix him either, but she made him want to be better. Not for her. For himself. He looks at the phone on his desk. He wants to call her, but he knows he can't ask her to come back until he's figured out who he's going to be, with or without her. So, he sits in the silence, and he makes a choice. The board meeting happens 2 weeks after Torren and Raina stop speaking. Same glass-walled room, same 7 faces, same tension crackling in the air. But this time, Torren walks in with a folder full of policy proposals and a decision already made. I'm implementing new moderation standards, he says, sliding copies across the table. Stronger content filters, partnerships with mental health organizations, transparent harm reporting published quarterly. One board member flips through the document, frowning. This will slow growth significantly. I know. It'll cost millions in the short term. I know. Torren, another member says, leaning forward, we've been patient. But if you can't prioritize shareholder value, then replace me. The room goes silent. I'm not reversing course, Torren continues, his voice calm but firm. I built this company to help people. If we can't do that without causing harm, then we don't deserve to exist. And if that means I lose my seat, so be it. He stands. Vote however you want. I'm doing this anyway. He walks out before anyone can respond. For the first time in months, he feels like he can breathe. Raina stands in the small office at the Riverside Community Arts Center, staring at an email on her laptop. Subject, Grant Award Notification, Riverside Foundation. She reads it 3 times to make sure it's real. $50,000, renewable annually for 3 years, enough to fix the roof, replace the radiator, buy new supplies, pay herself an actual salary. It's from a local foundation she applied to months ago, one that has nothing to do with Torren, nothing to do with tech money or billionaire guilt. Just community support. Just people who believe in what she's building. She closes the laptop and looks around the room. The cracked walls, the peeling paint, the dragon mural visible through the doorway. She's been so afraid of needing anyone. So afraid that asking for help meant admitting she wasn't enough on her own. But this isn't rescue. This is partnership. This is people recognizing her work and choosing to invest in it. She picks up her phone and scrolls to Torren's name. She hasn't called him in 2 weeks, but maybe it's time. Not because she needs him, because she wants to choose him. There's a difference. Torren's text comes that same evening. I know I said I'd give you space, but I need to ask, can we talk on your terms? Whenever you're ready. Raina stares at the message for a long time. Then she types back. Thursday, 7 p.m. The bench. His response is immediate. I'll be there. Thursday arrives cold and clear. Raina walks through the same plaza where she sat a year ago, stood up and heartbroken, convinced she'd never be enough for anyone. Now she knows better. She's enough because she decided to be, not because someone else validated her. And if she's going to be with Torren, it won't be because he completes her. It'll be because they choose each other, flaws, fears and all. She sees him standing by the bench, hands in his coat pockets, breath fogging in the cold air. He looks up when she approaches, and he smiles. They sit side by side on the bench, the same yellow street lamp glowing above them, snow falling in slow, quiet flakes. It's been a year, Raina says softly. Yeah. Torren looks around. Same bench, same snow, different us. She nods. He turns to her. I'm sorry I disappeared. I needed to figure out who I was going to be without using you as the answer. I did the same thing, she admits. I needed to stop waiting for someone to make me feel worthy. And I got a grant, a real one, from a local foundation. The center's stable for the next 3 years. His face lights up. Raina, that's incredible. And you? How did the board meeting go? I pushed through the new safety policies. Some board members are furious. A few might try to oust me. He shrugs. But I'm sleeping at night again. She smiles. Good. They sit in silence for a moment, the cold seeping through their coats, but neither of them moves to leave. Can I tell you something? Torren asks. Always. Meeting you didn't fix me, Torren says. I had to choose to change, but you made it harder to lie to myself. Raina looks at him. Being with you didn't make me worthy. I already was. But you've been a mirror, one that pushed me to see that more clearly. He nods. I spent years chasing success because I thought it would prove I mattered, that if I built something big enough, I'd finally feel like I was enough. And I spent years chasing relationships for the same reason, Raina says. I thought if someone important chose me, it would mean I was worth choosing. But it doesn't work that way. No, it doesn't. Torren turns to face her fully. I love you. Not because you're from some other world that makes me feel grounded. Not because you're proof that I'm a good person. I love you because of who you are. Messy, passionate, unwilling to let me get away with anything. Raina's throat tightens. I love you, she says, not because of your money or your influence or the attention you brought into my life. I love you because you're becoming someone I respect. You're flawed and trying, and that's more real than any fantasy I used to chase. He reaches for her hand. She lets him take it. I don't want to rescue you, he says quietly. And I don't want you to rescue me. Good, she says, because I'm done being anyone's savior. And I'm done waiting to be saved. So, what do we do? She squeezes his hand. We choose each other, every day, on purpose, without illusions. He smiles. I can do that. Me too. They sit close now, shoulders touching, hands intertwined. The snow falls around them, quiet and steady. Torren leans in, and Raina meets him halfway. The kiss is soft, deliberate, not desperate or rushed. It's a promise, not of perfection, not of a fairy tale ending, just of two people choosing to show up, for themselves and for each other. When they pull back, Raina rests her head on his shoulder. Same bench, she whispers. Different story, better story, he says. What about you? Have you ever chased a relationship, a job, or a lifestyle, hoping it would finally make you feel enough, only to realize you had to choose your own worth first? Share your story in the comments. Your turning to point moment. And if this story hit home, consider sharing it with someone who might need this reminder tonight. Now, let's see what happens next. 6 months later, the Riverside Community Arts Center looks different. The ceiling no longer leaks. The radiator hums quietly instead of clanging like an angry ghost. New canvases line the walls, waiting for small hands to transform them into something wild and beautiful. More kids come now, 20, on a good day. When word spreads about the mural project, the dragon still watches over the room, protective fire and all. Torren visits sometimes, not every week, not as a sponsor making appearances, but as Torren, the guy who can't draw. The kids don't care about his company or his net worth. They care that he listens when they talk and doesn't pretend to know things he doesn't. His company is changing too, slower, more careful, less focused on being the biggest, and more focused on being responsible. The stock price hasn't recovered fully, but he sleeps through the night. And that, he's learned, is worth more than any quarterly earnings report. Raina and Torren's relationship doesn't look like a fairy tale. It looks like Thursday evenings in her small kitchen, attempting to cook dinner and burning the rice because they got distracted arguing about whether cilantro tastes like soap. It looks like him showing up to the center with coffee, staying for an hour, then heading back to a board meeting where people still challenge every decision he makes. It looks like her reminding him, gently but firmly, that she doesn't want to hear about stock prices over dinner. It looks like him reminding her, just as gently, that she's allowed to ask for help without it meaning she's weak. They have boundaries now, clear ones. She doesn't attend his corporate events unless she genuinely wants to. He doesn't try to fix problems at the center unless she asks. They respect each other's separateness, and somehow that makes being together even better. Because they're not trying to complete each other. They're two whole people choosing to walk side by side. On a Sunday morning, Raina wakes up in his apartment. Glass walls, city views, everything she once thought represented a life she'd never have. But she doesn't feel small here anymore. She just feels like herself. Let me tell you what this story is really about. It's not about a billionaire finding redemption through love. It's not about a struggling artist being saved by a man with money. It's about two people who were each waiting for something outside themselves to prove they mattered, and learning that no one else can do that work for you. Raina spent years believing that being chosen by the right person would finally make her worthy. Torren spent years believing that building something massive would finally make him enough. They were both wrong. Love is not a rescue mission. You cannot outsource your self-worth to another person's attention, money, or status. Power and wealth don't absolve you from responsibility, they increase it. And real love? Real love is the choice to stand side by side, not to disappear inside each other. On that bench, Raina didn't just meet Torren. She met herself, without the costume of needing to be chosen. And Torren didn't just meet Raina. He met the man he'd been too afraid to become. Someone willing to sacrifice growth for goodness, profit for principles, applause for integrity. That's the kind of love worth having, the kind that doesn't cost you yourself. Now let me ask you something. Where are you waiting for a dream date, dream job, or dream life to finally prove you're enough? What relationship are you holding on to because you think being chosen by them will validate you? What career are you chasing because you believe success will silence the voice that says you're not worthy? Here's the truth. Nothing outside you will ever fill that gap. Not a partner, not a promotion, not a number in your bank account. You have to choose your worth first. And then, only then, can you decide who gets to walk beside you. Not because you need them to complete you, but because you want to build something beautiful together. That's the difference between desperation and love, between performing and being seen, between waiting to be chosen and choosing yourself. So what would it look like if you stopped waiting? What would it look like if you decided, right now, that you're already enough? If this story spoke to you, I want you to do something. Take a moment, right now, and write down one thing you're no longer willing to sacrifice for love, success, or approval. Maybe it's your peace. Maybe it's your identity. Maybe it's the quiet voice that tells you when something doesn't feel right. Write it down. Say it out loud. Make it real. And if you'd like more stories like this, tales that entertain your heart and challenge your choices, remember to subscribe to Mr. Duskmore's Golden Twilight Stories. Tap the like button. Share this video with someone standing out in the snow, still waiting to be chosen. Leave a comment telling me, what's the one thing you're no longer willing to sacrifice? I read every single one, and I promise you, you're not alone in this. Until our next Twilight tale, remember, the love worth waiting for is the kind that doesn't cost you yourself. The bench sits empty under the yellow street lamp. Snow falls in slow, quiet flakes. Two sets of footprints lead away from it, side by side, disappearing into the night. Not merged into one. Not lost in each other. Just walking. Just choosing. Just enough. This has been Mr. Duskmore, reminding you that the best stories aren't about being saved. They're about saving yourself, and then choosing who gets to walk beside you. Good night.